Alright guys, welcome back to the moon. This is Shadow Drake. So let's go over the next biggest topic to your survival, and that will be growing your food. Now, the reason I chose the moon is because it has something important to do that you need to do. Plants, as you can tell see under organics and foods. Yep, under the growing food thing, you have a pretty simple little thing for how to get started in the growing food guide section. It is a very good read. You can ignore the fertilizer part; is absolutely not needed, but it's not fully detailed. So let me go over the full details. Now, plants, you have to really there's really three, you can argue four things, but it's more like three major things. One is its environment. That means air composition, air pressure, and temperature of the air. Two, water. Duh. And three, light. So you gotta fix all three things for a plant to grow and thrive. Now, when plants are growing, you're gonna look at them and it's gonna say the plant is thriving, or the plant is growing moderately well, or the plant is barely growing, or the plant will never grow. Those are key indicators to let you know that you have something wrong in the environment. And unfortunately, just by looking at it, you won't know what it is. And so the only way for you to know exactly what is going on is if you print the cartridge plant analyzer, which just takes some copper, iron, and gold. And I gotta find my iron. It's in here. The plant analyzer cartridge will give you detailed information on the plants as far as its growth, the efficiencies, anything that could be kind of hindering it, but it does require some deductive reasoning for you to kind of figure it out. And as you can see here, growth efficiency will be the overall growth, and that's what is returned to you. Breathing efficiency is based on the air. Does it have the right air composition? Temperature efficiency is depending on where its current temperature is between its minimal and max ideals. If it's too hot, this will drop. If it's too cold, this will also drop. Pressure efficiency is the same thing if it's between the minimum and max ideal pressure. Basically, near vacuum, it's not going to grow. Too heavily pressurized, also not going to grow. And then the final thing will be the light efficiency. This is what I'm going to take a lot more time in discussing with you, because there's a lot of misconception with it. You have light intensity, which is based on whether the sunlight or grow light are both reaching the plant at the same time. That goes towards its light efficiency. Illumination stress is a indicator that shows it's either getting not enough light or not enough darkness. And that's typically the thing that will trip people up, because if you see light or darkness efficiency, if light efficiency or darkness efficiency are saying not enough, that will cause illumination stress to build. The problem, though, is that Stationeers is on a 20-minute day cycle. These two parameters, if you see them occur on a plant, it takes roughly that same amount of time for you to fix it. And so that could be a problem, because if you catch it too late, the plant will already be dying from lack of light or lack of darkness, and it might be too late to save that plant. So for your first crop, absolutely watch over them literally every single time you go in the base, check on them. And hydration efficiency is, do they have water? That, fairly simple. So the plant the plant cartridge will be necessary. So now comes the whole, okay, well, how do I know what a plant needs? So let's look at the first plant we're going to grow, and that is the good old potato. So when you look at any plant type, it doesn't have to be potato. There's a lot of information on the Stationpedia, such as what gases it needs, in this case, carbon dioxide. What it exhales, in this case, oxygen. What gases are toxic to it, pollutants and volatiles. And then how much water it uses. Keep in note, 0.432 moles per hour, that's real-time hours. This is why the water creation loop using farming is so ridiculously positive. They barely use any water. In fact, 1 liter of water is 55.6 moles, So you can see in 1 hour, this doesn't even scratch a single liter of water. You need at least 100 potato plants to get close to scratching a liter of water per hour. Then now you have the minimum grow temperature, max grow temperature, ideals. This is getting into more of like the plant genetics, letting you know, hey, what growth ranges could it possibly grow in? And so it's kind of useful, kind of not useful. Really, you just want to look at the ideals to let you know what you need to get your base to. And it's the same with the pressure, the pressures you need. So typically around 100 kilopascals is more than good enough, maybe a little less, but the plants can eventually go there. Now, the light and darkness per day. These are minimums you have to hit. Now, these minutes are based on the Stationeer days. This is why it gets a little confusing. So, a plant needs at least 5 minutes of light per day, 3 minutes 20 seconds of darkness per day. And so, what that means is when sunlights or grow lights hit, it's going to tick up the light per day within that 20-minute period. Once it reaches that, then it will no longer be light deficient. But if it never reaches that, when the day crosses over, then the plant will flag you on the analyzer cartridge, I am light deficient. I need this met. And that's going to start, it could lead to eventually dying. Same thing for darkness per day. Now, light is only grow lights and sunlight. Your little lights that you throw around the base, not going to affect it. So you could have all of those lights all over that plant and that won't affect it. But a plant needs some darkness time. So it's the same thing. If a plant is not getting light, this is going to start ticking up. Once it hits the minimum, it's good for the plant. If you never let it hit the minimum, then the plant is going to start dying because it won't have darkness. It must have both of these. And that's why you see the times are so low, because you have to hit both of them. And theoretically, most planets, like Moon, Mars, Vulcan, Venus, and the asteroid belt, you can grow potatoes off of just the natural day-night cycle, but no other plant will really grow very well. And then you have time until you see it start taking damage. And as you can see for the potato, if it does not get enough light over 1 hour, that's basically 3 Stationeers day, that's when it starts dying. And this is what I'm telling you. You have 20 minutes to fix that. So if you peek at it and it starts dying, it's light deficient, you have some time to fix that. Because if you don't fix it, it's highly unlikely that plant will survive, because now you're taking light damage. And if you haven't fixed it, and it's highly unlikely you will fix it in time, that plant is dead. Same thing for darkness. So just giving you that awareness. I know I threw a lot in here, but let's get started with growing. So the first thing we need is the environment. And as you can tell, this is moon vase. I have a lot of CO2 in here, but chances are when you first start, you won't have the CO2. And honestly, the first ready source of CO2 is dumping your waste canister into the base. But it's going to become clear that that's not going to be all that you could get. So let's go over to what I did for my furnace to get a little bit of extra CO2. And honestly, Mars, Vulcan, and Venus, you can just easily take your portable filter outside with the CO2 filter and just turn it on and you'll have CO2. So this is kind of a solution you need for Europa and the vacuum worlds, because your main source of your main source of CO2, it comes from your furnace. You see this furnace, it's already cooling down. It has 1.7 kilomoles of CO2. That would be lovely for my plants. And so what I did in the back, you see this is the exhaust system to exhaust it with the valve out there. I now also put a one-way valve from that same exhaust system that'll go to a portable filter. Now the only reason I have both the CO2 and a nitrogen filter is because, well, nitrogen is not hard to come across, but I might as well grab it too. So the simple thing is just open that valve, turn this on, and basically this will start filling up with some CO2 and nitrogen. Now, keep in mind that this is hot. So what I could do is grab one of my radiators from my passive radiator cooling and slap it onto this thing to help to cool it down. Because, I mean, I can't just roast my plants with 240 Celsius air. That's just not going to work very well. Definitely won't work very well. And so basically I just, leave that running until I get everything. However, I do have to mention one thing. When I leave it running, I don't want this radiator here. The reason being that CO2 will freeze when it gets below negative 55.3 Celsius. Vacuum worlds and Europa, it's extremely easy for this to happen. So I don't recommend leaving a radiator on this pipe network, or really just you forgetting about this completely. It's best that you just grab it and go. So, yeah. So while I let that filter, I'm going to remove that. We're going to go over the other stuff. So you just need a fairly simple thing. One atmospherics kit, a passive vent, some pipes, a portable connector, and a brand new portable gas tank to just get, a decent chunk of CO2 for your plants. And that will, and some nitrogen as well. And that will work for that. So now, let's go over setting up our greenhouse. Now, our greenhouse is from the green box here, and they usually give you some seeds. They might not give you all. You have a Growlight, a pipe utility kit, insulated water canister, hydroponics tray, and I've had some liquid pipes, but I put them somewhere. Go figure. There they are. So to set up a greenhouse, it's not that bad. I like to do a greenhouse that is supplemented with sunlight. Sunlights and grow lights will both work. But first, let's talk about the Growlight range. Now, the Growlight range is actually a 7x6 square. It is unfortunately not a 7x7, which would make so much more sense, but alas. The Growlight has a data and a power connection separately, in case you want to split it up. Now, unfortunately, the centering for this is really weird. It's gonna be based on the power connection, but unfortunately, you can't really hide it behind that stuff because on this small room, it's going to clip out. So we're going to build it kind of in a weird spot. So take a look at that power connection. I put it in the direct middle, which is going to be marked by this hydroponics tray. So from this middle, it is a 7x6. Coming out away from the connection, you go 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So that's the upper right limit. Let's do the same thing. 1, 2, 3. And that's the top left limit of the Growlight range. Now, unfortunately, to make it 6, you just go out. You go down by 2. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. And so, as you can tell, this is kind of the Growlight range. 42 trays is a pretty big, hefty number. And it kind of just it covers just about all of this. Unfortunately, for making things simpler, yeah, that's gonna look awkward. But yeah. So this covers the Growlight range. This is kind of what I'm leading on to. What trays do I use? So when I look hydroponic, you have a portable hydroponics, which I'll be honest, useful if you really need to move it around. I don't know why, but yeah. Then you have your hydroponics trays, which are what I just placed down. Hydroponic devices. These actually have a data connection so that you can actually get data about the plant. However, you cannot place them side by side. They need at least one space between them. And finally, you get the hydroponic stations. So the only reason I don't use the hydroponic stations, they have their own grow light in them. You have 4 spots for plants, and you can cable them and water them up for the plants. However, they use up quite a bit of space. I believe this is a 3x3 on the station. I want to say I haven't really built one. I'll print one and build it later. but a 3x3 square space used up for only 4 plants compared to hydroponic trays, I could build a whole 7x7 thing of plants and have a pretty sizable farm growing, which will be great. So, yeah. I prefer the trays. Feel free to use the station. If anything, the only good thing about the station is that you just need some basic materials plus your steel. So it's something that you can build early on, and the only reason to shy from the trays is because the Growlight kit needs Electrum and steel. So, I mean, if you can make steel, you can make Electrum. You saw the intermission, how I made everything. So it's kind of up to you which you prefer. But personally, you need quite a big farm for dealing with your breathing. The big thing, however, about hydroponic devices is the massive amount of iron you use. So the hydroponic trays, you make them in the pipe bender, 10 iron per. It's a hefty amount. So let's plant our first plants. Let's plant our first potato. So when I plant this potato over here, you're going to notice something. I never gave it water. And this is kind of what I'm talking about, the warning rate messages. It's not growing, it will never fruit, it needs water, and it is in darkness. So this potato plant is absolutely unhappy. And if we look at it with the plant analyzer, you're going to see no growth, hey, 100% breathing, 99% thermal because it's a little under the ideal temperature, 100% pressure efficiency because I'm within the current pressure, light efficiency is 100%. It is in darkness, so it is getting its darkness time, and you see no deficiency yet. But hydration, 0. I got no water. And that's kind of obvious because I purposely did that so you can see warning messages. Now, the interesting thing about plants, if you forget about the water, you can actually water them with a water bottle. See? Interesting, you can water them with a water bottle. So if you somehow forget that, and you need to water a plant, your water bottles from your station is actually enough to give them water. But let's do it a little bit more properly. The proper method would be to pipe up your water to your water tank. But I am just going to bring this up that if you set this up nowhere near close, there's an alternate method. They gave you an insulated canister package of water. This is what's meant to be your starting water for your plants. So I'm just going to put that right there, slap it on here, and boom, just like that. And now they're going to have water, at least until this runs out. And if I need to fill this up, I can either fill this up or actually take the time to run the piping to water. Doesn't matter which. Oh, but now you see the sunlight is here. So let's take a look at what the sun is doing for it. 102% light intensity from the moon's sun. Now the sun light intensity varies from planet to planet. On Mars it's about 57%, Europa is I believe 17-ish percent, Mimas is like a whopping maybe 8%, I don't know, it's very low. And Vulcan, I think it's about 150%-ish. Venus, maybe 120, 150. I haven't checked those recently. But the sun gives it good light intensity on Moon, Mars, Vulcan, and Venus. It's actually helpful to use it with your grow lights, which I am going to wire up now. So be right back while I wire this up. Alright, we wired up our grow lights, so let's turn it on. Now, let's look at what the Growlight light intensity is for the plant. Oh, 182%. A Growlight adds 80% light intensity. So what I am basically doing is this plant is getting all sorts of light and it's loving it, and it's going to boost its growth because of that. Well, right now its growth is tanking a little bit because I think I left my passive cooler system on. Yep, I did. Whoops. Anyway, so the temperature's tanking, so you see the plant is growing slower. And so for the very first time you're growing plants, one seed. Literally one seed. Don't plant anything else because you need to watch this whole plant through its entire life to see what can go wrong with it. If you plant all of your plants and you have some condition that goes wrong, it'll affect all your plants. And if it's light and it kills them, you're out of luck. You basically destroyed your entire cultivation of plants. So if that happens to you, you can survive the playthrough. You just have to rush into trading to buy more seeds and or food for the time being. Yeah, so one plant, watch what it's doing, because I'm gonna leave this grow light on to force it to be light deficient, which is probably the first major mistake that people will do, is turn on the grow light and leave it on. Never give it darkness time to rest. So while this day is going, let's go get that portable tank. So let's take this inside and let's release some of the CO2, because remember, looking at the plant analyzer cartridge, it tells you how much you need. See, it needs at least 1% CO2 and it's got 5.45%. So that means I have enough. But, if I needed to add a little bit more air, bring in some CO2 in here, this is going to be hot air. So we're going to release this into the environment. It's going to warm it up a bit. Quite a bit. And we'll just release all of it. Just so that I can also show what happens. Alright. The temperature is extremely high. Now look at it. This plant is saying, hey, it's too hot. Now it's barely growing. It's suffering here. Yes, I am torturing a potato. And if we look at its efficiencies, you can see that they dynamically change. And you see 38 Celsius is a little hot. Temperature efficiency is climbing back down because, my base is settling. All that CO2 is settling. But now I got plenty of CO2 in here for this plant. And look at that growth efficiency. That can go past 100%. And all of this is boosted grow light from my light intensity. So it's very likely this potato already got all the light it needs, and now extra light is helping to boost its growth. Sun is still way up high, so let's talk over my next point. Let's turn this passive cooler on, cool down that mistake a bit. So then, the question is, how do I automate this grow light? Well, because you definitely want to automate this grow light to turn on or off based on the time of day, especially if you're matching it with the sunlight. So what I'm going to show you is a solution that you can use with chips to do that. And what I like to do, at least for this, I'm just going to have the wall of chips right here, right next to it, because I'm probably planning on doing a, actually, let's move it one more. Right here, so I can have piping go through here. The chips will be right here, and the door over here in case I want to separate this from the rest of the base. And this is going to be almost like your daylight sensor. Excuse me while I eat and drink. So, it's going to be almost the same exact stuff as with the solar tracker. You're going to need a logic processor, a logic memory, your sensor for daylight sensor, and 2 logic I/O kits. I have 4 because I accidentally left the printing. And so it's going to be a logic reader. Then you're going to need I'm going to put the memory chip there. You're going to need a logic compare with the memory chip attached to it. And finally, a batch writer. So basically that's all you need right there. And the daylight sensor will of course go outside. Now, you could use the daylight sensor you use for your solar tracker. That's fine if it's part of the network. But because this is on a separate APC, that network has no visibility on that. So that's what I'm going to go and use. Low pressure. Oxygen low. A separate sensor. Critical. Pressure critical. So I'm just going to need a daylight sensor. And you know what? Just point it over here. And we're just going to wire it up. And we go back inside. Alright, so now comes with cabling all of this up. So, of course, you need to wire power, wire data. I like to have the memory chip always be by itself. And lastly will be the batch writer. Like that. So this basically takes care of it. So what I am going to do to show that, let's go ahead and set it up real quick. So the logic reader, you need the daylight sensor. Now you can do vertical or you can do solar angle. Either one works. But once you got that, you're going to hear incessant clicking. So vertical is, well, actually, let's do solar angle. I like that better. The compare unit, we're going to grab our logic reader and logic memory. And we're going to do for less than. Turn it on. Now your batch writer, we're going to do your logic compare. Out type will be your Growlight. And on parameter. Now, before I turn this on, I'm going to, because I want to show the darkness efficiency, but let's just show this. Now, when the sun gets below 90 degrees, that's when it is nighttime. So solar angle between 0 to 90 is daytime, with it facing straight up like that. 90 and up is nighttime. So ideally you want to start your logic memory at 90. And so you're going to turn the batch reader on, and you see the grow light is on. The sunlight is still there. But once the sun goes past the horizon, grow light goes off. So this is a rudimentary grow light that syncs up with the sun. And if you want to give it more light time, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to set this to 190 so that will always stay on. If you want to give more light time during the night for a plant, you just modify your memory chip. But you have to keep in when you make modifications to this, watch your plant, please, because you're not entirely sure exactly what's going to happen. So yeah. So if I were to change this back to vertical, for example, vertical and solar angle tend to match. And so because of that, you can use vertical or solar angle. And so this potato right now is thriving. It's happy. Everything is met. It's got some light. It's got some extra growing. It's speeding 160% growth. That's kind of insane. I don't need my suit and helmet on. Well, actually I do. I don't have light. But let's leave this alone for a while so that we can, until it finally starts stressing about darkness. And it's going to take a while, so be right back. Alright guys, we're finally back. Okay. So right now it says it's thriving, but when I check it, it says it is darkness deficient, and its illumination stress is increasing because of that. This is kind of one of the things that you're going to see. So this darkness deficiency tag will cause that illumination stress to climb up. And now, to prove the point, if I were to turn off my batch writer and turn off the grow light, well, that's not going to help it any, because now the sun is up. And you see, this is kind of where you can have like a runaway condition. So now this potato is getting lots of light, hasn't had a chance to rest, so it's just gonna have a rough time. But now, remember that the potato, it needs to be darkness deficient for at least 1 real-time hour before it starts taking damage. So that's what I'm saying. For your first batch of plants, when you first get this set up, have a test plant ready. more likely than not, the biggest problem that will kill it is you left your grow light on 100% of the time, didn't give it darkness requirements. We have a automation right here with just these 4 chips set up to turn this on and off. But like I said, I didn't set this properly. So now that it's daytime, the sun is above 90. So let's just say that I want this grow light to be on. Yeah, it's gotta see a change of state. Go figure. So if I set this memory to 90, that will match it perfectly between sunrise and sunset. So when the sun rises, it'll turn on. When the sun sets, it'll turn off. But if I want to boost light growth, this is where the light intensity part of growth goes in. You saw how I got to 164% growth speed with the combination of sunlight and grow lights. The other thing to that is you can also boost its growth by having this grow light on through part of the night. But this is a big trial. This is an experimentation with trial and error. Because remember, you have got to respect the plant's nighttime requirements. So, for example, I would set this to 110. So part of the night, the grow light will still be on. And the rest of the night, it'll turn off. And when you do a change like this for your grow light automation, definitely keep an eye on all your plants. Watch over it for the next 2 days to see if you get darkness deficiency. Because if you have the grow light on through part of the night, the biggest danger is dark deficient plants, which is going to lead to stress, which is going to lead to reduced growth. So yes, that's what I would say. And you can see when you next come in and check on your plants, you'll be like, BDBDB, oh, growing moderately well, what's wrong? Well, pick up your plant analyzer cartridge, see, alright, breathing's okay, temperature's okay, pressure's okay, light efficiency is not okay, illumination stress, dark deficient, oh no, I didn't let you sleep, Then you have a plan of attack for how to actually fix that. So, yeah. So, in short, get its air environment set up. So that means the right air composition. In this case, I just need CO2 for potatoes. The right temperature, between 20 and 30 is ideal. The right pressure, so basically between 50 to 100 kilopascals is ideal. And that should take care of the breathing and temperature efficiency. Then of course is water. Now, water can be too cold. So if this water is below 5 Celsius, this plant is going to scream that is too cold and it's going to start dying. If it's also too hot, then the plant is going to start screaming the water's too hot and start dying. Yeah, so just keep that in mind. You can't just feed it 0 Celsius water and expect it to thrive. You actually need the water warmed up to a degree. And then the last thing, of course, is light efficiency, which when you look at the plant, you got to respect this 5 minutes light per day, 30 minutes darkness per day. Now, I forgot to mention light per day. That's 5 minutes of light at 100% intensity light. So look at your light intensity. Right now, that's 183%. This thing is almost doubling that. So, as far as light per day, I only need it to have about 2.5 minutes, maybe 2 minutes 40 seconds of light to actually, be satisfied. So if I were to take 5 divided by 1.83, yeah, like about 2 minutes 45 seconds of light per day. Grow lights, however, are 80% intensive. So if I were to take that 5 minutes divided by 80%, that means I need 6 minutes and 15 seconds of light. You keep that in mind. It isn't very easily stated, but that light intensity does matter as far as light per day, and you must respect that darkness per day. Now, typically, again, a Stationeers day is 20-minute days. So once the sun sets, typically it takes about 10 minutes of darkness from that point. It varies per world, so just, remember that if you ever change your grow light automation, you need to watch your plants. Make sure that they are okay. And again, one test plant, one test potato, one test wheat, one test soybean. So now that I'm confident, well, more confident that this is okay, I'll plant one wheat, and I'll also plant one soybean. The goal is to see if all of these grow correctly. Right now they're thriving, and that's fine. They always thrive at the beginning. So they're getting their light, they're getting their air, all their efficiencies are met. They're not going to have very long in the sun. And again, check these plants. So for example, wheat. It looks like for wheat, I need 10 minutes of light per day. Ooh boy. 5 minutes of darkness. Oh, so that needs more than potato. So maybe that 110 might be okay for potatoes to have their darkness, but may not be okay for wheat. Now let's check soybean. Now soybeans are interesting. They need both CO2 and nitrogen. That's why I said nitrogen from the furnace as well. Even though you technically have oxide-isis and nitrisis, still, it's a good habit for the later worlds that have 0 nitrogen in the world. Again, 10 minutes of light per day, 5 minutes of darkness. So with this change on the automation, that should boost their growth due to sunlight, but potentially I have to watch the wheat and the soybeans to make sure that they are not dark deficient. So that will be something to check in later in the day to see if they are dark deficient. This potato is just going to be absolutely unhappy until until it's nighttime. So yeah, I think this is about where I am going to cut it, because now I need to wait for this to grow. Oh, I completely forgot. Disclaimer. Sorry about that. At the very top it says grow time, 1 hour. Now, remember at the end of the water video, if you didn't remember, I recommended getting your farm operating and going somewhere around day 14, day 20 is when you want to get it going. It's day 11. I'm really good for time right here. I've got this going very early. The only reason I say that is because let me grab my boxes of cereal bars, all of them. Now, I have plenty of cereal bars. I'm set on food for a while. However, when you're down to just 3 or 4 cereal bars left, that's when you really need to get the farm going. Because the first plant you can cook is potato, and they grow in 50 minutes. Now, typically in Stationeers, you eat every other day. The easier difficulties, that time lengthens, so it might be every 2 days or every 3 days. And remember, this grow time is in real time, so 50 minutes. So that's at least 2.5 Stationeer days. So that's probably 1 cereal bar's worth. And as you saw, this takes some time to set up to get going properly. And also you need to watch your experimental plant to make sure they're all going to grow and not die, barring this potato plant that's been tortured. So, yes. So around that time, that's an eclipse because it's 78. Yep, that's an eclipse. So when you're down to 3 or 4 cereal bars, you have got to prioritize the farm, and you have got to get this going. You have got to get a Growlight timer set up going properly, either tuned to the sun or on a timer. And you have got to watch to see what happens to the plants. Because again, you can't just... The worst thing you can do is panic because you're down to your last cereal bar, plant all 3 potato seeds, all 3 wheat seeds, all 3 soybean seeds, have no automation on your grow lights, and then your plants all died because of something related to light. Like, I would say 90% of the times, the reason your plants die is because of lighting issues. You either didn't You either left the grow light on 100% of the time, or you didn't, or you're turning your grow lights off too soon without sunlight, so they're never getting the light they need. Or the worst case is you probably forgot to watch your environment and you let it get too hot, too cold, and suddenly your plants no longer are growing. So yeah, it's kind of easy to kill your plants, and you don't want to do it when you're panicking. You definitely, that's why I say day 14 to day 20, you start preparing for it, because realistically, this many cereal bars on normal difficulty will probably last me till day 30. Stationeers difficulty, yeah, day 14, day 20 is a good time to start this. So that's all about plants. When we return, I'm going to go over how to prepare and store your food, and that will cover the last bits of food. However, I need to let these things grow first. So hope to see you then. Thank you and have a good day. Bye-bye.